Hey y'all, Carrie Pulkinen here. I just wanted to pop in and say hi. This is the first time I've tried a live video on my phone, so I really hope this is working. But I wanted to tell you about the new book that I have releasing today called Flipping the Bird. This book is part of a project called Paranormal Chick Lit, where a bunch of my author friends and I got together and decided that we would release a bunch of paranormal romantic comedies and cozy mysteries under the common brand of Paranormal Chick Lit. And the first big launch is today. There are 7 books releasing today. And if you go to paranormalchicklit.com, you can find links to all 7 of them. I've also got them up on my blog, on my website at carriepulkinen.com, so you can go there as well. But I wanted to tell you about Flipping the Bird. This book the idea came to me when I was out on a morning walk. I walk every morning around my neighborhood, and we live pretty close to a wooded area and a creek, so there are lots of critters. I see deer and nutria, all kinds of birds, but this particular morning I was walking and saw about 5 or 6 crows sitting on a fence. And I went for my phone to get my camera so that I could take a picture because, you know, my corny sense of humor. I thought, oh, I'm going to take a picture. I'm going to post it on Facebook and tell all my friends that I witnessed a murder on my morning walk. Well, the crows were on to me, and they flew away before I could get the picture, saving all of y'all from my corny joke. But the idea for Flipping the Bird was born then because I thought I've always wanted to write a book with a different kind of shifter besides a wolf. So what if I did a crow shifter? That could be fun, and it could be the heroine of the book, and that is Alice. And then I thought, well, you know, crows like shiny things, so what if she was a salvage artist? She goes around and raids people's garbage, taking all of their junk back to her art studio to make art. And of course she needs a best friend, and that best friend has to be a raccoon shifter because everyone knows trash pandas love digging through garbage, right? So that's how the idea came to me. But I thought that since the book just released today, and you can get it on Amazon, Kindle, Kindle Unlimited, and in paperback, I thought that I would read the first chapter so you can kind of get an idea of how the story goes. So here we go. I will read chapter 1 of Flipping the Bird. Hi, Judy Lynn. Nice to see you. Okay, here we go. Holy mother of unnecessarily cruel inventions. Alice Crawford clenched the steel jaws, which were currently gripping her ankle with 1,000 times more force than she could muster, and tried to wrench them apart. Son of a bitchin' bobcat. That hurts. Piercing pain stabbed all the way to the bone where the trap penetrated skin, and blood trickled down her leg, staining her sock. Damn it, that was one of 2 pairs without holes in the toes, too. Gritting her teeth, she clutched the contraption in both hands, trying to pry it apart, but the insufferable snare refused to budge. Evil piece of garbage. How did a crow shifter find herself in the middle of a farm, entangled in a trap meant to save birds from predators when she was a friggin' bird herself? Well, it was shiny, glinting in the moonlight, and she was a crow. How could she resist? Her mistake had become evident the moment she swooped down to grab the culpable object, and it clamped down on her leg. The shock had forced her to shift from crow form to human instantly, and thank her lucky stars for that. It would have snapped her bird leg right in half. Now she sat with her butt planted firmly in the dirt, her left foot ensnared in the most inhumane of modern torture devices, while the chickens in the coop beside her bucked their feathery little heads off, threatening to expose her for trespassing. Fan-friggin-tastic. A pair of eyes gleamed in the moonlight, and a chubby raccoon waddled toward her, chittering like she was laughing her ass off, which she was, knowing Megan. The chickens took one look at her, and pandemonium erupted inside the cage. Their clucking intensified, and they started running around like chickens with their heads cut off. I'm glad I could provide your amusement for the night. Now help me out of this trap, will you? Those chickens are cackling loud enough to wake the whole town. The raccoon shifted into human form, and mirth danced in Megan's dark brown eyes as she sidled next to Alice on the ground. Hi-ho the dairy-o, the farmer takes a crow. Funny. She clawed at the trap, but the stupid thing must have been broken. It would take the jaws of life to pry it apart. Her ankle throbbed, and her foot was going numb. A little help, please? This is what you get for trying to grab every shiny object you see. Here. Megan pushed the latch on the side of the trap, and the teeth released their hold. Alice yanked her leg from the device, pressing her hand to the wound to keep the blood from staining her shoe, too. Oh, hello, Pot. My name's Kettle. It's nice to meet you. At least I know a trap when I see one. Megan opened the wicked contraption, setting it on the ground before poking the release with a stick. The jaws snapped shut with a whack, breaking the stick in two. You're lucky it only got your leg and not your whole body. How'd you shift so fast? Alice shrugged. I don't know. Instinct, I guess. Well, your instinct should tell you to stay away from these. She picked up the device, curling her lip as she examined it. That's a raccoon trap, isn't it? Raccoon, fox, stray dog, anything that might go after his chickens. She glared at the hunk of metal in her hands. I mean, he has a right to protect his flock, but to make a poor animal suffer? The feeling returned to Alice's foot, and she sucked in a sharp breath through her teeth. I liked it better when it was numb. Let's get you to the creek. You'll be good as new in no time. As Megan rose to her feet, the farmhouse porch light flipped on, and the screen door whacked against the facade when a man stormed onto the patio. He squinted, peering into the darkness before cocking his rifle and stomping down the steps. Alice's pulse thrummed. She couldn't afford another trespassing charge. See you at the creek. Not if I see you first. Megan shifted into raccoon form and darted into the brush, dragging the trap behind her. Scrambling to her good foot, Alice winced against the pain and shifted into crow form. Thankfully, her wings weren't affected, and she took to the sky as the farmer barreled toward the chicken coop. Her injury made it impossible to tuck her leg beneath her properly, which also made it impossible to fly straight. She tumbled through the air, completing 2 full barrel rolls before crash landing on the creek bank. With a pained squawk, she righted herself, shaking the pebbles from her feathers before returning to human form once again. Fresh blood streamed down her leg, and she kicked off her shoe, sliding her sock off her swelling foot. Mother Ducker, that's the last time I help you search for rusty farm equipment. I don't care how much of a commission you're getting on that sculpture. It's not worth this. She gestured at her wound. Come on. Megan appeared from the bushes and helped her stand. Let's get your foot into the water, and then you can berate me for trying to keep our business afloat. She let Megan absorb most of her weight as she hobbled down to the creek and rested her foot in the shallow stream. The moment the enchanted water washed over her skin, the wound tingled, sparkling magic surrounding the injury as the swelling subsided. Slowly, the gashes from the trap's jaws stitched themselves back together, and within minutes, no trace of the wound remained. Ah, the tension in her muscles eased as the pain finally vamoosed. That's more like it. Alice scooted back onto the bank and slipped on her blood-stained sock and shoe. Starlight glittered on the surface of the creek, and a cool spring breeze carried the sweet fragrance of wildflowers and honeysuckle. Megan stared out wistfully over the water. I remember when it wouldn't have taken more than 2 seconds to heal a gash like that. How much longer do you think we have? I don't know. Rising to her feet, Alice draped an arm around her best friend's shoulders and gazed at the creek. Once vast and wide, the shallow stream now meandered along the narrow rocky path, no more than 2 inches deep in some places. This section of the creek, nearest the bubbling springs from which it originated, would reach her waist if she waded into the center. 15 years ago, no one could touch bottom. She wiggled her foot. What would they do when the creek dried up? How would the town survive? The full moon is next week. Megan sighed. It hasn't reversed flow in the past 6 months. Can we even call ourselves Shift Creek anymore? It is the official name of the town, and it had that name before the creek got its magic. Once, nothing more than forest and farmland nestled in the Texas hill country, The town was founded by a motley crew of shifters. No, not the band. A sleuth of bears, a gaze of raccoons, a clutter of bobcats, and a murder of crows all joined together to live in harmony in Shift Creek. Back in the 1800s, a powerful warlock blessed the creek, giving it healing powers for supernatural beings. Every full moon, the stream reversed flow, rejuvenating the magic and creating a great marketing gimmick for drawing tourists to the town. The springs that sourced the creek filled it with tons of minerals and junk that the Mundys, aka humans, thought were good for them, so the townsfolk capitalized on it, creating a spa that catered to both the Supes and Mundys. The water didn't do much more for the mundane than any other hot springs would, but for the Supes, it was a lifesaver, literally. The town prospered for almost 200 years until the last ancestors of their beloved warlock moved away, taking their magic with them. Apparently, the blessing spell was contingent on someone from the Raincourt bloodline living in the town because when Marcus Raincourt packed up his kids and skedaddled to New York 30-something years ago, that was when the trouble started. Well, not on the exact day. It took several years for the townsfolk to realize there was a problem. With the drought that hit the hill country and the construction of a highway a few miles away, the lowering water level seemed it was due to natural or Mundy causes in the beginning. They didn't realize the magical source of the problem until the torrential rains that flooded the area did nothing to restore their namesake creek. And the slew of witches and warlocks they'd called in to revive the spell hadn't been able to do a damn thing to fix it. Has the Soup Committee had any luck contacting the warlock? Megan asked. Didn't I tell you? Mr. Hoity-toity Marcus, who thought he was too rich and fancy for our town, ticked off the wrong sleuth of bear shifters. Last month they found him mauled outside his cabin upstate. Something about a spell he gave them going wrong. Alice leaned her back against a tree trunk and crossed her arms. We're looking for his sons now, but they're MIA. And if they were anything like their father, even if the committee could contact them, they'd refuse to help. How do people from a family that rich and powerful go MIA? Megan put her hands on her hips. You'd think they'd have people. Even their people probably have people. Oh, we've spoken to their people. Matthias refuses to return our calls, and Griffin is apparently off the grid in a jungle somewhere. She chewed her bottom lip and stared at the water. Alice joined the Soup Committee 2 months ago when the Mundys of the town formed their own group to come up with a solution. She joined both groups, actually acting as a Mundy to spy on those who believed the supernatural origin of the creek was merely legend. If you do wrangle one of them and they come here, be sure to let me know, Megan grinned devilishly. I'll be a one-woman welcome committee if you catch my drift. Alice rolled her eyes. You're going to catch something one of these days. Don't be jelly of my social life, babe. You'll always be my BFF. Trust me, I'm not jelly, Alice laughed. Which one do you want to welcome? Either. You know they're both gorgeous. How would I know that? Megan's mouth fell open. Don't tell me you've never seen a picture. They're supernatural celebrities, so they're all over the internet. They're so rich, even the Mundys know who they are, though they think they're a family of venture capitalists. She tugged her phone from her pocket and typed on the screen. Alice shook her head. 1, people shouldn't be called celebrities just because they're rich. That term should be reserved for people with talent. I'm happy to audition either one of them. Look, Megan shoved the phone in her face. Alice took it from her, waving it in the air as she spoke. And 2, even if they were real celebrities, I still wouldn't be following their lives. I love the art, not the artist. But look, Megan stilled her hand, and Alice finally took notice of the screen. That's Matthias. Doesn't he have a powerful don't F with me look about him? Very alpha. With dark brown hair and icy blue eyes, Matthias Raincourt looked like a man not to be trifled with. He probably likes his women dumb and silent. Next. Maybe, Megan eyed the image. He does have a coldness about him, doesn't he? Still hot, though. She swiped the screen. Griffin is my favorite of the brothers. He's ruggedly handsome, don't you think? And he's always off helping people in third world countries, so I'd have plenty of time to miss him. Griffin had a warmer expression, with softer lips and eyes a slightly darker shade of blue. He looked like he might possess at least an ounce of kindness. Alice made a mental note to focus her search on Griffin. He'd be the one most likely to help them, if they could track him down. She handed the phone to Megan. Except when he disappears, he's really gone. We've been trying to contact him for a month. He'll come back. They always do. Megan dropped to her knees to rummage through the bushes. Ah, here it is. She pulled out the trap that had ensnared Alice on the farm. This will make the perfect set of teeth for my bear sculpture. Alice fisted her hands on her hips. We're not thieves anymore. My raccoon would beg to differ. You have to return that. We're salvage artists, remember? We make art from discarded things, not stolen things. Megan held the trap to her chest. He left it outside on the ground. Technically, it's a trap, Meg. It's supposed to be outside on the ground. What are you going to do when Farmer Tucker walks by the shop and sees his stolen trap in a piece of art? What do you think he's going to do? She shrugged, pouting her lower lip. Admire my talent and commission his own piece? Alice threw her arms in the air, letting them drop at her sides. He's going to call the cops. Megan huffed. Fine, I'll take it back. These things should be illegal, though. Write a letter to your congressman. Maybe I will. Good. I'm going to call it a night. See you at the shop tomorrow? I'll be there with bells on. Please, no bells. Just be there. A few months ago, Alice jokingly said she needed to put a bell on her friend when Megan startled her for the umpteenth time. Meg took it literally and wore a string of the noisy suckers around her neck for a week, jingling all over the place and giving Alice a headache. You got it. Megan's body shimmered, and a mist of pale pink sparkles dancing around her form as she shifted into her raccoon. She chittered a goodbye and scurried toward the farm, dragging the trap behind her. With tourism at an all-time low, they were hurting for cash as it was. They couldn't afford another arrest, especially a theft charge. Alice sighed, taking one last look at the waning creek before calling on her crow. Her body shimmered in green, her magical signature color, which happened to match her eyes. How cool was that? And she morphed from a 5'8" brunette into a 1'7" black crow. With a flap of her wings, she took to the sky, soaring above the trees toward town, when a light shining in the corner of her eye caught her attention. Was that coming from Raincourt Manor? Her little heart fluttered in her chest as she altered course and headed west toward the abandoned house. Someone on the committee must have gotten through to the brothers. Hallelujah! The town was saved. She flapped harder, elation fizzing in her veins as the mansion came into view. From the outside, you'd never know the place had sat empty for the past 30-something years. A groundskeeper who lived in a one-bedroom cottage on the property kept the place immaculate. The lawn was always mowed, and the paint had never peeled. Inside? Who knew? She imagined lots of chandeliers and expensive furniture covered in sheets, a thick film of dust layered on everything, the stagnant air smelling of mildew like an old haunted house. Or heck, they were rich. If they could afford to pay a groundskeeper all these years, maybe they ran the AC and kept it a comfortable 74 degrees inside at all times. One thing was for certain, though. Never in all the time Alice had flown around the place had she seen a light on inside. She swooped toward the balcony, landing on the railing and ruffling her feathers before hopping closer to the window. Inside, she glimpsed a stack of boxes and a 4-poster darkwood bed with a deep burgundy duvet. A matching chest of drawers sat against the opposite wall, and was that a fainting couch? Alice blew a puff of breath through her nostrils. Based on what she'd learned about Marcus Raincourt, his wife probably used it regularly. A shadow moved in the corner, and her heart rate kicked up again. If she had fingers, she would have crossed them that the person it belonged to would be Griffin. Truth be told, she didn't know much about either brother. She didn't keep up with the tabloids, and they were both little when their father dragged them to New York, so none of the townsfolk had much intel on them either. Their father, Marcus, was remembered as a hard-ass warlock who looked down his nose at everyone, including the other witches and warlocks in town. He considered the residents of Schiff Creek simpletons, never mind the fact he was born and raised here too. Rumor had it he sold spells on the black market to make his millions. Alice would rather be a simpleton than a criminal. Hey, trespassing didn't count. If she'd stayed in crow form while digging through the junkyard, she never would have gotten caught. Sometimes a girl needed to use her hands. Don't judge. The balcony door stood open, probably to air the place out. Even if they had run the AC for the past 30-something years, the inside must have smelled dusty. Alice hopped along the railing, getting as close as she dared, when a masculine grunt emanated from inside. "Where is it, Martin?" His voice was deep and a little bit rumbly. It was also kind of velvety at the same time, like Rocky Road ice cream. How the smooth chocolate melted in your mouth, and then you hit a nut or a marshmallow, and those little bumps were what gave it its flair. How should I know? You packed the boxes. The responding voice held a higher nasally pitch that didn't sound quite human. It wasn't in a box. It was in the satchel with you. Despite being obviously perturbed, something about the man's voice made Alice shiver in a good way. She suddenly had a craving for ice cream. As she leaned toward the open door, the man came into view. He was tall and slightly tanned, with broad shoulders and muscular legs. His dress slacks and blue button-up had obviously been tailored to fit him perfectly, and as he bent over to peer inside one of the boxes, those fabulously tailored slacks conformed to his backside like they'd been painted on. Yum. He straightened and turned, revealing a strong jawline with sharp cheekbones. His face might have been harsh if not for his full lips, which were currently turned down in a frown, softening his features. Instead, the total package made for one fine specimen of a man. Sweet sugar, he was beautiful. This man had an air of authority, of power, like a raincourt, but he looked nothing like the pictures she'd seen of Matthias and Griffin. Rather than piercing blue, his eyes were dark brown, mysterious. Even in his current mood, they held a look of kindness the brothers lacked, and his hair was light brown, or would it be called dirty blonde? Either way, unless he dyed it, his locks didn't match the dark mahogany of the raincourts in the photos. Her heart sank. If he wasn't a raincourt, he couldn't save the creek. So what was he doing here? She didn't recall seeing a for sale sign on the property. Oh well, she'd focus on tracking down Griffin this week. With any luck, she'd have a lead by the next committee meeting. I don't remember seeing it in the satchel. The nasally voice had come from a furry little critter who currently sat atop one of the large boxes. About 1.5 feet long from nose to tail, the mongoose had brown fur and beady eyes. Yep, it was a talking mongoose. A familiar. So at least he is a warlock. Maybe he knows the raincourts, Alice thought. Shifters like Alice and Megan were limited to the abilities of their animal when they took on their form, aside from their minds, of course. They kept their human intelligence, but they lacked the vocal cords needed to actually speak. Familiars, on the other hand, were magical critters who acted as helpers for the lucky witches and warlocks who were able to catch them. They were rare, and until tamed, they lived in the forest with their non-magical cousins. Only super powerful beings could tell them apart from mundane animals and catch them, which said a lot about Mr. Haughty in there. Oh, and because they were magical creatures who didn't shift, familiars could talk in animal form. Must be nice. But they had no human form, and their intelligence never surpassed that of a 10-year-old, so the vocal cords were the only thing Alice envied. That, and the way Mr. Haughty picked up his familiar, cradling him against his chest and stroking his fur. I've got something you can stroke. She cawed at her own joke. The mongoose snapped his head toward her. Dinner! He scrambled over the warlock's shoulder and leaped to the floor, scurrying toward the balcony door. Surely he didn't mean she was dinner, did he? He stopped beneath her, sitting up on his hind legs and pressing his little paws together. Here, birdie, birdie. Holy crap, he did want to eat her. He leaped toward her, swiping his claws like he, an animal, actually thought he could have a shifter for dinner. In his defense, he probably didn't realize what she was, but still. Alice screeched and flapped her wings, taking to the air and dropping a little present on his head before flying around to the front yard. Ah, she pooped on me, the familiar whined as she flew away. Okay, maybe it wasn't the most ladylike thing to do, but she was in bird form. If it looks like a crow and sounds like a crow. Not her finest moment, true, but the damn thing wanted to eat her. She soared over the silver Audi parked in the horseshoe driveway. The metallic paint glinted in the moonlight, so she circled above it, taking in the view. Hey, she was a crow. She likes shiny things. As she started to fly away, something near the road caught her eye. Dark silver with a soft green glow, it sat atop a trash bag inside a garbage can, so it was fair game, right? Totally fair game. She swooped down and snatched it, taking to the air again and flying home. And that is chapter 1 of Flipping the Bird. As I said, it's available on Amazon in Kindle, Kindle Unlimited, and in paperback, so go and grab your copy. Now, it's $2.99 for release week. Thank you. So that is it. Thanks for stopping by and watching, and I will see y'all later.